Thank you, Michael. March 2022. It's amazing how much has gone on since we first started qualifying and moving through each window. We are able to see the team gain valuable experience throughout each window, and we're prepared. As we enter this final window, we know there's going to be challenges involved. We know there's going to be ups, we know there's going to be downs, but we're in good position right now, and our goal is to finish it off and qualify for the World Cup by the end of these 3 games. So, tough opening game in Mexico City, then we come home to a great crowd in Orlando, then we're back on the road in San Jose, and, we expect all 27 players to play some type of role, and we're really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We'll begin with questions and start with Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. I know you may have addressed this on Sports Center, but if you could provide an update on what you know about Serginho, that would be great. And then the other question I had was, obviously rotation is always a topic of conversation, and I was curious, in your experience, playing at Azteca and sort of keeping track of guys' fitness, is it possible to go 60 to 90 minutes at Azteca and then play again 3 days later? Do you imagine sort of using 2 completely different platoons of players? Thanks.
No, it's certainly possible. I wouldn't rule out a player being able to play 90 minutes at Azteca and 90 minutes in Orlando and 90 minutes again in San Jose. When you look at some of our players, the rhythm that they're playing is basically, Saturday, Wednesday, through most of the year. So some of our players, not all of them, but some of them are prepared, and some of them will be able to play 3 90-minute games. And it's just identifying who, and then rotating other ones out that aren't able to play that amount. Regarding Serginho, it's not great news. The initial diagnosis, it seems to be a hamstring injury, but we're going to get the final details tomorrow. But we may need to replace him, and we've already identified candidates to replace him, and we're already prepared to speak to him first thing tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next will be Doug McIntyre from Fox.
Thank you, Michael. Hey, Greg. Thanks for doing this. Curious how much you think you can use Gio Reyna in these games. He's obviously not started a game or gone 90 minutes for Dortmund in 5 or so months. And second question on John Brooks, what went into that decision to, call in 2 center backs that have no World Cup qualifying experience over a guy that, is playing week in and week out in one of the top leagues in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, so regarding John Brooks, I had a good conversation with him and explained to him that this is our thinking for the window. This is what we chose to do in this window. It doesn't determine his future with the national team. And I think that's a very important distinction. Like all these guys who weren't included in the initial roster, doesn't mean that they don't have a role to play in the future. So we did what we thought was best for this window and the way we want to play. And, sometimes we leave players out, sometimes we bring them in based on our opponents and based on what we're trying to do in this window. So that's John. Regarding Gio, I had a good call with Dortmund today, with the coach of Dortmund, and, planning out his usage and planning out how much we think we can use him. The important thing is, Gio returning to the club. The important thing is us qualifying for the World Cup, first of all, but secondly is Gio returning healthy to his club. And we're mindful of his load. We're mindful of the work that he's done in the last couple of weeks, and we're going to adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next will be Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Greg. What is the current condition with Zach's back and shoulder? Obviously, he dressed the other day. Is he 100%? Is he still working his way back? And also with Matt and the foot, there have been some scuttlebutt that he may have had frostbite in addition from the Minnesota game. Is there anything to that?
So I'll take Matt first. His injury has nothing to do with frostbite, the reason why he's not playing. if you guys have been following their preseason and following their games, you'll know exactly when it happened. It was a play in one of the games. So it's unfortunate, and hopefully he's going to be back soon, but, we're going to miss him this window. Regarding Zach, he's in full training. Speaking to the Manchester City staff, they're confident enough to put him on the bench, and he would have to play if there's an injury, and there's potential that he plays this weekend. So he's been training really well. We've been getting that feedback, and he's ready to go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next will be Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Michael, Greg, I wanted to loop back again to kind of the rotation idea. I know a lot of players are playing, every 3 days, but there is a bit of a difference in going to the Azteca and playing at altitude and then going and playing 3 days later. How do you plan on just kind of monitoring how players are recovering, or thinking about kind of the extra bit that goes into playing against a rival like Mexico? And then I wonder, in replacing Weston, how do you see those three options, and those options at that position to replace him? And is Gio Reyna in consideration playing centrally when he does come in versus just on the wing? I know he's listed as a winger. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule out Gio being able to play there. The issue is just his rhythm, his fitness, and his game time in his last 5 months, right? So, eventually I think it's a position he can play, and we'll have to see if it happens in this window. Regarding Mexico City, I think the important thing is first to look at the starting point of where these guys are coming from. So if a guy is fully fit and playing every week and has 90 minutes under his belt for considerable amount of weeks, he'll be fine. They'll be fatigued a little bit at altitude, but they'll be able to get through it. I've had personal experience there. Getting feedback from other countries that have played there already, getting feedback from the MLS teams that have played there already. It's something you can get through. And so our job is to put 11 players on the field that can win the game, and that's what we're here for. We're here to win soccer games, and we're going to put guys on the field against Mexico, against Panama, and against Costa Rica that we feel can win the game.
Next will be Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Hey, Greg, thanks a lot. 2 questions for you. One, piggybacking on Paul's question about Mexico City, what special preparations do you make when you play at altitude? If you could share maybe a little bit of how you do that. And second question, given his playing time and his form, would you say Ethan Horvath maybe has inched into that number 1 spot? Thanks.
He's definitely in contention. There's no question about it. He's performed excellent lately, and it's going to be up to the last minute decision. We're going to have to assess both of them when they come into camp. Zach's back. He's healthy. He's traditionally, the number 1 goalkeeper, or in contention to be number 1. So, we'll view them when they come into camp. Regarding, again, Mexico City, it's, there's little things you can do, but unless you're there at altitude, it's hard to make a huge dent in it. But we've been checking the players' blood and making sure they have, the necessary things to compete at that altitude.
We'll go to Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Greg. In terms of replacing Weston, is it safe to say that Kellen and Luca are the 2 prime candidates to replace him? And how does that change, given the opponent? And then in terms of a Serginho possible replacement, might you err on the side of getting someone a little bit more familiar playing left back? Because it seems outwardly that Anthony is kind of the only guy who lately has spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, we will do that. If he can't go, that's what we'll do. We'll bring in someone that can play left back. It's a good shout, Jeff. We had Serginho originally as cover at left back, but obviously with that gone, we could be potentially exposed. We also see Kellen Acosta potentially being able to play left back, but with him having minutes in midfield, it may not be ideal. So we'd probably do something like that. Regarding Weston, you don't replace him. That's the thing. He's been so important to this group that it's not, we're not going to plug a guy in and get a like for like, but that's okay. We've won games before without him, and we'll do it again. Some of the guys that come to mind, Kellen's an obvious candidate that comes to mind. We have Luca Derogatory that can play their position. We have Brenden Aronson that can play there, Gio Reyna that can play there, Roldan, and one other player, and Eunice obviously who can line up there. So we have, we'll have enough bodies to get someone on the field that we feel can perform the role adequately.
Okay, thanks.
Next will be Grant Wall.
Hey, Greg, good to see you.
Hey, Grant.
What went into the decisions to bring back Jordan Pefok and not bring back Josh Sargent this time?
Just goals. It was it's the type of form that Jordan's in, the type of game we see happening, specifically in Orlando. We think we're going to need a box presence. We think we're going to need someone there that can finish off crosses. And he's been doing great. He's been doing a really good job, very physical presence in Switzerland, scoring a ton of goals. With Josh, it's a real tricky one, man. And I wish you guys could help me out on this one. He's playing right wing for his team, not getting a ton of chances, not active offensively that much, but he works his ass off, and he's an ultimate team player. So that it's a tough decision. For us, it's almost like trying to project his performance if he played striker for us. Josh is a guy that I think is gonna break through and gonna be a national team number 9 in the future, and we just have to be patient and wait.
Thanks, Grant. Next will be Ivis Galarcep.
Greg, you mentioned goals. Ricardo Pepe's in here. It's been 5 months since he scored a goal. Obviously, everyone expected him to be part of this group, but how kind of concerned are you about where he is in terms of confidence and in terms of his just kind of adjustment period in Germany? And then the follow-up on John Brooks, you said the last couple of windows that, for this window, not this window, then the next window, not this window. There's 5 center backs in this camp. There's 2 others who are injured, and Chris Richards and Mark McKennie. So that's 7 center backs. So as it stands right now, someone could argue he's 8th on your depth chart. Do you understand why maybe it's kind of looking like maybe we'll never see him again at center back for you? Is that an unfair assessment, or what do you think about that idea that maybe we've seen the last of him with the U.S. national team?
Yeah, I think that's unfair. And the reason why is, I've talked to him. So, when you look at these windows, and I hate to get detailed about this, regarding an individual player, but when you look at the window in October, he had an injury. November, we weren't happy with his form. November and January, we weren't happy with his club form. Now he's back playing, and now it becomes about what our game plan is for this window. And there's some details in his game that I talked to him that we need to improve to fit into our game up. And we don't have time on Tuesday to improve these things. The game's on Thursday, the game's on Sunday. There's not a runway here. So I think when this whole thing settles down, and hopefully we're in the World Cup and we have the June window, the September window, I think there'll be another opportunity for him where we can really start addressing where we think his deficiencies are, to be the starting center back in our pool. But like a lot of players, we're not, or like all players, we're never going to rule a guy out. That's not how we work.
If I may, on this topic, point out something from your colleagues. If you could look at the tweet from Derek Ray, he does have a quote from John Brooks that I think you'd be able to use. Next, we will go to Sebastian Salazar from ESPN.
Hey, Greg, guys, thanks for the time. Just on the rotations, I wonder if that kind of goes out the window, given the fact that if you take care of business in those first 2 games, the third game kind of doesn't matter. So does it change your approach at all with what we've seen in the past windows with 3 games, which is a significant rotation in that second game?
Yeah, I think that's a decent point. The one thing for sure that we know is Costa Rica has to win their games, right? So they're going to be playing their best possible lineup in all 3 games. So if it comes down to it, They're going to have a group that has played 2 games as well. So, I mean, for us, it's not trying to get cute. It's trying to put teams on the field in each game that we think can win the game. We know we're going to, I think the beauty of this thing is we have 5 subs, and we're in Mexico City. We're going to use all 5 subs. We may use some earlier. We may be more purposeful with how we use these substitutes, but there's going to be 5 subs in that game. And then it's about, how are we planning for the next game as well. But, I think that's a valid point. We'll have to see as we go.
Next will be Paul Kennedy from Soccer America.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks, Greg. 3 players who have not played that much recently in Europe are Tyler Adams, Tim Weah, and Ricardo Pepi, who I think Ivis just mentioned. Can you assess their situation and their ability to play a lot of time in these 3 qualifiers, given the fact that they haven't played few 90s in the last month?
Who was the second one that you said?
Tim Weah.
Timmy, Pepe, and who was the other one?
Tyler.
Tyler, yeah. Yep, Tyler, got it. Yeah, so I'll start with Pepe, and I was sorry for not answering your question. It wasn't intentional. I gave you an extended version on the John Brooks, so I mistakenly didn't answer that one. Am I concerned about Ricardo Pepi? Absolutely, no question about it. We want him scoring goals. We want all our strikers scoring goals. And you could make the case that, why isn't Josh, included in the roster if he's not scoring and Pepe's not scoring? But, one thing with Ricardo is, getting back to the basics with him. He's a goal scorer. That comes naturally to him. And that's something we need him to refocus on, clear his mind, focus on doing the small things, getting in good positions, because if he gets in good positions, we're comfortable he's going to score. He's asked to play slightly different for Augsburg when he's on the field. They're creating chances by him running behind the back line, not so much from service. And, we hopefully will get some more service into the penalty box, and that will help him out a little bit when he plays. So it is a concern of mine, but I've spoken to him at length, and he's ready to go for this window. Timmy's been getting a little bit more game time lately, but certainly not the 90 minutes that we expect out of him. And that is a little bit of a concern. We're going to have to use him in spots in this window. I don't think it's realistic to think that Timmy can play 3 90-minute games, but he's certainly going to be valuable for us in this window. And then regarding Tyler, with some guys, it comes down to mind over matter. And Tyler, that's got to be the case for him. He's an important part of this team. We need to have him on the field. And even though he hasn't been getting game time, he's been training, he's fit, and he's ready to go.
Thanks.
Yep.
Next will be Sam Stejskal from The Athletic.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Greg. Hope you're doing well. There was a lot of talk ahead of last camp and during last camp about Christian and his form and his role with Chelsea and his role with you guys. He didn't answer a lot of those questions on the field, maybe until the last game when he brought him off the bench against Honduras. But he seems to be answering them pretty resoundingly with Chelsea here over the last few weeks. How, I guess, have you seen his form, his mental state since the last camp? And what do you expect from him here going forward, particularly with his ability to seemingly really step up in the biggest games for club and country?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to watch. And I say this all the time. When I was asked about him last one, I said, it's a roller coaster, especially when you're at a club like Chelsea. When you're at these massive clubs, it's very, very difficult. And all they ask him to do is just to keep fighting, keep working, and wait for his opportunity. And he's done that, and he's taken advantage of it. He's become, again, an important part of their team. He's shown that he can step up and score goals and make assists. And, he's got a great knack for arriving in the penalty box, and he's got a finishing touch to him. He's very good when he's in front of goal. So for us, we expect very similar things. Like, he doesn't, again, he needs to keep arriving in the box, because we know when he gets in good position, he scores. And just continue to focus on the basics, and he'll be the leader that we expect him to be.
Next will be Charles Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for chatting today. Two-parter from me. You gave a hint with the Pepe words a few moments ago, but do you have a set starter at the number 9 spot at this time? And two is, why do you think Costa Rica has been such a nightmare trip for this program over the decades, and how might that history influence your approach?
So regarding the starter, we'll see when we get in training. We have some ideas, but I wouldn't infer from what I said that Pepe is going to be the starter necessarily. We got to see him when he comes in camp. Right? Although we have limited time, we'll have to assess these guys. And regarding Costa Rica, you would think that when they move to the national stadium, that it would be easier to get results, and it hasn't turned out like that. I remember playing in Saprissa, and that was the most volatile place in CONCACAF at the time, and it was just an absolute cauldron. And by the way, they also had a really good generation of players that have just been coming through. And so, give them a ton of credit for getting back into this, right? Before last window, people were writing them off, and now they're right in the thick of it. And it's going to be a difficult game for us. But again, as I mentioned in the opening, is that, these are types of challenges that we need to embrace and that we need to hit head on, because they're difficult games, and we're looking forward to them.
We'll go to Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Greg, for the time. Where do you see Gianluca Busio fitting in? And is he a candidate for any of Weston McKennie's minutes, given his sort of two-way ability?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's, that was a player that I forgot to mention. I apologize for that. Gianluca has been adapting and doing a great job of getting on the field in Italy. Highly competitive league, and he keeps finding his way on the field. He's playing different positions. Sometimes he's attacking, sometimes he's defensive. But we see him, as cover in two positions, attacking mid and center mid, just as we see James Sands as cover in center mid and center back. So we think we have some versatility in the 27 players that we bought in, and we're looking forward to getting back in touch with these guys and seeing them on the field.
Next will be Ryan Tallmadge from Goal.com.
Hey, Greg, just looking at Brenden Aronson, he's a guy that every time he comes back to camp, it seems like he's taken a different step forward. And you just look at the things he's been doing over the last few months with Salzburg and going toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich and playing well in the Champions League and kind of taking that leap into a different type of player. What are the things you've seen from him in the last few months and since last camp, and what are the things you're expecting to kind of see from him going forward?
No, he's been doing great. He's been taking the steps. You'd like to see that the development path just keep going like that, and that's what he's been doing, really improving his game. I still want to see him finishing attacks off more, especially if he's playing the winger position for us. I think that's an area of emphasis. But he's fantastic at pressing, a great work rate, gives the team energy, and he's going to be important in this window as well.
Next will be Andrew Jones.
Hey, Greg, hope that you're having a good Thursday. And if you filled out a bracket or any brackets that they're not, broken right now in terms of college basketball. You have Eric Palmer-Brown on this roster, as he's had a great last few weeks for Troyes, really playing the best soccer of his career. What for you have you seen from EPB that has had him risen up now to getting this call up in this important period?
Like most of you guys, I have North Carolina winning it all. I'm sure you have the same thing, and they started the tournament with a resounding win over Marquette. Go Heels. He's an example of a guy that we just kept watching him and seeing the improvement every single week, and seeing the tenacity and how he defends, his ability to deal with pace, deal with runners behind the back line, his ability to carry the ball forward, to make passes and build up. So he's been doing a great job. I mean, League One in France is a difficult league for center defenders. When you look at a lot of top center defenders, they've come from League One. And, he's doing a great job lately. And we're really excited to get him back into camp and work with him.
Thanks, Andrew. We've got 2 more questions, and we'll start with Claudio Villalobos.
Thank you, Michael. Greg, how much different has the preparation for these games has become because of the fact that all the teams in contention have something to fight for, except for perhaps Panama playing Honduras. Everybody else has something to say on the rest of the games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit of the difference between this window and last window is that, teams are now officially eliminated and some teams aren't. What I would say is nothing's changed. We've been preparing hard for every window. We prepared hard for this window, and each and every window brings its own challenges, and each and every window is difficult. It's, whatever we're predicting is going to happen in this window, throw it out, because something else will happen. Trust me, that's how this whole thing's been going. And it's exciting. And for us, it's only about staying in the moment, not getting ahead of ourselves and focusing on each training session and each game as they come. And if we do that, we'll be successful.
Our last question comes from Pilar Perez from ESPN.
Hi, thank you, Michael. Hi, Greg. About what happened in Mexico in terms of the violence between fans, what security guarantees did the Mexican Federation give you? And if there is any concern between you, the players, or anyone else?
I haven't been part of meetings, but we've been ensured that it's going to be a safe environment in Azteca. And I think that the Mexican Federation was just as appalled as what happened as the rest of the world. And they don't condone that type of behavior at all. And it hasn't happened when the Mexican national team is playing. So, I'm sure there's going to be added security, and I'm sure it's going to be in safe environment for both Mexican fans and US fans. And that type of thing has no place in the game. As competitive as the game is, it has, that type of violence has no place.